This is lesson 4.5, solving linear inequalities in two variables. So now we're going to be putting these graphs on a coordinate plane. And the steps to solve a linear inequality is, first of all, you want to graph the line. And we can do that with our graphing calculator. You will need to use a dotted line for anything that's less than or greater than, and you'll use a solid line for less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. Just like we used open and closed circles, we'll need to use solid and dotted lines. Now, if you use a graphing calculator, you won't really have to do this part. It will do it for you. But it is good to keep this part in mind because you can test a point once you get finished, a point that's in the shaded area, and make sure that it really works in your original equation or inequality, and that way you'll know if you've got the problem correct. So this is a good thing to remember here, but we'll pretty much use our graphing calculator. Now the first set of problems that you'll see, number 1 through 3, you're just going to determine if the ordered pairs that they give you are solutions to the linear inequality. So all you have to do is, just like before, just substitute those in. So for this first one, we've got the point -2, -3. So remember, -2 is x and -3 is y. So we'll substitute that in our inequality, 5x minus y less than or equal to -1, and we'll see if it's true. So we'll have 5 times -2 minus, and then we've got -3 for y. And we're going to see if that's less than or equal to -1. 5 times -2 is -10. Minus -3 is the same thing as plus 3. So -10 plus 3 is -7. And -7 is less than -1. So that one's a yes. So you're just looking to see if this statement is true or false. Okay, so then we'll do the same thing with the next one. We'll use the same inequality. 5x minus y is less than or equal to -1. So we'll have 5 times 2 minus 1, and we'll see if that's less than or equal to -1. 5 times 2 is 10, minus 1 is 9, and that is not less than or equal to -1. This is a false statement. So since that's a false statement, this statement 9 less than or equal to -1, so it's no. That is not a solution to that linear inequality. All right, so we're going to move on to the next set, and that's where we actually get into the graphing. And so we've got a linear inequality in two variables, x and y here, and it's -5x minus 5y is greater than 5. So the first thing in order to use our graphing calculator is we need to get this in y equals form. So we want to move our x's and then divide by -5. So we'll move our x's over to the other side. So I've got -5y is greater than 5 plus 5x. Remember, that sign changes when it goes to the other side of the symbol. Now I need to divide everything by -5. Now because I divided by negative, remember that reverses this symbol. So 5 divided by -5 is -1. 5 divided by -5 is -1. So this is what we want to put in our graphing calculator. Now remember, you're going to hit the y equals button on your graphing calculator, and then you'll put -1 minus 1x in. But you can change it, and I can't show you on here, but just raise your hand when you get to these, and I'll come around and maybe you can help each other, show each other how to change the symbol to be a less than symbol, and it will do all the line and the shading for you. So this line, when your graphing calculator graphs that, it's going to start on -1 and then go down 1 and left to the right 1. So that would be our line. Now because this is just a less than and doesn't have an equal under it, it's going to be a dotted line. So in MATLAB, when you're graphing this, you want to choose. So you'll graph the line first in MATLAB, but you make sure you choose the dotted line tool and not the solid line tool. My line's a little bit, I can't draw very straight on this. And then the next thing you'll do on MATLAB is you're either going to shade above the line or below the line. And again, your graphing calculator will do that for you if you have chosen the right symbol here. But because this is less than, that means everything below the line is going to be shaded. So we would shade this side of the line. And there's a tool in MATLAB that looks like a paint bucket, and you'll just click this side of the line and it'll shade that all in yellow. Remember, I said you could test a point that's not on the line and make sure it works. Like, for instance, 0, 0 is not on the line. So if we were to substitute 0, 0 into this original inequality, it should be false since it's not shaded. So let's try that and see. And this is a good way, if you're taking a test, is to test yourself and make sure. So negative 5 times 0 minus 5 times 0 greater than 5. I like to test 0, 0 because it's really easy. Negative 5 times 0 is 0, and 0 minus 0 is 0. And 0 is not greater than 5. So this is a false statement, and that means it shouldn't be shaded, and it's not. If my line was a little better, you could tell that that line doesn't even go through 0, 0. Let's go ahead and do homework number 6. So again, let's get this in y equals form. So I've got 4y less than or equal to negative 4 minus 1x. And then I'll divide everything by 4. And this time, since I didn't divide by negative, I don't have to switch my sign. Negative 4 divided by 4 is negative 1. 1 divided by 4 is 0.25, so we'll leave that as a fraction, negative 1/4 x. And then we're ready to graph our line. This time the line will be solid because it's got an equal under it instead of a dotted line. So if you were to look at your table, you want to find some points, and one of the points would be 0, negative 1, and another point would be 4, negative 2. So we'll go ahead and graph those points, and the line's going to be solid. So 0, negative 1, and 4, negative 2. And then we would draw a solid line between those. See if I can get it fairly straight. So either you would choose the line tool and go and draw your line. And then don't forget, because this is an inequality, you have to do shading. So you got to graph your line, and then you got to shade either above the line or below the line. This time, because it's less than, it should be below the line. So again, your graphing calculator will do that part for you. So again, we should be down here. So 0, 0 is not shaded. It should be false. So if we were to put 0, 0 in this original inequality, 0 plus 0 is 0, and 0 is not less than negative 4. It's greater than. So that's good because we will shade 0, 0. Now moving on to homework number 11. Good news on this one is it's already in slope-intercept form, y equals form. So we can go ahead and start our graphing. So a couple of points here would be 0, 0, and 1, 5. So we can go down to our graph. This one's going to be a solid line because the inequality has an equal under it. So that means it needs to be a solid line. So let's go down to our graph, and we will pick 0, 0, and 1, 5. and then graph that with a solid line. Okay, then we've got to decide which side of the line, left or right, should it be shaded on. And because the original inequality started out as greater than, it should be on the right side of the line. So we'll be shading on this side of the line. And we couldn't really test 0, 0 this time because it's on the line. We want to test something that's in the shaded part or not in the shaded part. I'm going to test 1, 1 because it's in the shaded part. 1, 1's an easy point to test to make sure it's true. So this one should be true since we colored that side in. So if we do y is greater than or equal to 5x, 1 greater than or equal to 5 times 1, y is greater than or equal to 5, that's false. So that actually means that I shaded the wrong side of the line because 1 is not greater than 5. So we should erase that side, and then we should shade the other side of the line. So if your graphing calculator didn't do that for you, then you would actually have to test a point like I did and color in the side of the line, but your graphing calculator should shade the correct part. Okay, the last two problems here are multiple choice, so I wanted to show you this because you know you can always use your choices to kind of help you out here. So the first thing that I notice here is that it's just a greater than. It doesn't have an equal under it. So that means that my line should be a dotted line. So I'm going to look at my choices first and eliminate the ones that are not dotted lines. So I'm going to eliminate B and I'm going to eliminate D. Then the only difference between A and C is where the shading is. On A, 0, 0 is not shaded. If I zoom in on that, 0, 0 is not shaded. So that means if we test 0, 0, it would be false if A is correct. But on C, 0, 0 is shaded. So if we test 0, 0 and 0, 0 is true, then C would be correct. So I think quicker than just putting this whole thing in your graphing calculator is to just test 0, 0 real quickly and see if it's true or false, and then we'll know which one is the right answer. So let's come back up here and test 0, 0 in this inequality. So we've got 4 times 0 plus 2 times 0 is greater than 4. 0 plus 0, and 0 is not greater than 4. That's a false statement. So that means that it should not be shaded. We don't want to shade 0, 0, which is the point we tested. If it's shaded, that means it's true. It's one of the solutions. So we don't want it to be shaded. So that means that A is the correct answer and not C. Okay, number 14 is very similar to this. The last one we just did is kind of backwards because they give you the graph first and then are asking you to match it up with the correct inequality. So again, the first thing I notice is that this line is a dotted line, which means it should not have an equal under it, which means we can eliminate choice B. The next thing that I notice is that on A, the slope is 8, C, the slope is 1, and D, the slope is 8. So I'm going to kind of see what my slope is here. So if I start at 0, 0, I would go, if I go up 1 over 1, I would be here. So the slope is not 1. So if I go up 8 and over 1, then I would be here, And that is on that dotted line. So I know it's either A or D. I'm just not sure exactly which one it is. The only difference between A and D is that A says greater than and D says less than. So the next thing I want to do is test a point, just like we just did, and see which one should be shaded. So if I test 1, 1, that one is shaded. So 1, 1 should be true. Since it's shaded, it's colored in. So if I test 1, 1 in the first one, this one would say 1 is greater than 8, and that's false. So A is not the correct answer. If I test 1, 1 in D, this one says 1 is less than 8, which is true, so D is the correct answer.